Want to give you that silent treatment first. Hi, welcome to Washington Informer Newspaper's digital broadcast program, WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. This is it, really true issue, so I hope you've had a chance to pick it up. This week in our Black History Month special section, we highlight education, attending HBCUs, affording college, and literacy. Those are some of the highlights of some of the stories we did for this week for Black History Month. But we also feature a story on the DC Progressive Firefighters Association and their efforts to eradicate racism in the department and to establish a cadet program. So you can read that story. And when I say the progressive firefighters, I'm talking about a history of Black firefighters in the DC Fire Department and EMS. And there's a history there. There's a rich story that they were able to share with us. And a lot of those early firefighters are no longer with us, but they certainly did appreciate the value that they brought to the department. So read that story, and we're going to have some more because they're doing a history program next week at the Academy, and we're going to learn a little bit more about Eleanor Holmes Norton and her, I think it was her father, who was, can't remember Shabby, but anyway, was one of the first Black firefighters here in the District of Columbia. So you can read these stories and more in our print edition and online in the digital edition at www.washingtoninformer.com. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we'll follow you back. I always say that because we want to follow you, and hope that you continue to follow us and that you'll share the program with the people in the community, your friends, your neighbors, your family members. Share it because this is what makes a difference to us. Just knowing that we are reaching and communicating with our readers. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. That's all one word, no spaces. Washington Informer TV. So I think, are going to have an exciting show. We're still focused on Black history, and I'm glad that we are because so many people are being threatened to not do so. And we know what our calling is here at the Washington Informer. You all like my sign back there? Black Lives and Black History Matter. I am so grateful because I got that from, anybody knows Mr. Black History here in Washington, D.C., Chuck Hicks. And he had a great kickoff of Black History Month, and they passed out those signs. So that's going to be our sign for the rest of the month. We're going to have Lynn Dyson with us. Well, before that, we're going to have Dr. Lopez Matthews, who's the district's archivist. And if you don't know what that is or what that means, I'm sure many of you do. You'll find out because Dr. Matthews will share his position, unique in the world, in the United States. And so we're glad that he was able to join us and give us some tips on how we can begin to collect and archive our own family history. We're going to have someone who's no stranger in the District of Columbia. Everybody knows the name Lynn Dyson, and he's president of the Multimedia Training Institute. And we hope we'll be joined by playwright Odell Ruffin, who are here to discuss an upcoming play at the Arc next week on the life of Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. And lastly, husband and wife team Charles and Ashley Young are with us today to kick off the wedding season. So before we bring on our guests, let's watch our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news. This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. February 3rd saw about 50 cars of a Norfolk Southern train go off the tracks in Ohio, causing a days-long fire in the area. 10 of the 50 derailed cars contained hazardous chemicals, including biacrylate and vinyl chloride, which were among combustible liquids that authorities fear could set off a major explosion. Residents of East Palestine were later asked to evacuate out of precaution, and on Monday, February 6th, crews conducted what officials called a, quote, controlled release of the hazardous chemicals, which caused a large plume of black smoke. The evacuation order was lifted on Wednesday, and since then there have been a growing number of reports about people experiencing burning sensations in their eyes, animals falling ill, and a strong odor lingering in the town. The Environmental Protection Agency, which has been monitoring the air quality, said it has not detected, quote, any levels of concern in East Palestine as of Sunday. The agency added that the vinyl chloride and hydrogen chloride have not been detected in the 291 homes that they have been screened as of Monday. There are still 181 homes left to be evaluated in the voluntary indoor air screening program. The 19-year-old white gunman who killed 10 black people at a Buffalo grocery store last year was sentenced Wednesday to life in prison without the possibility of parole during an emotional hearing that was briefly interrupted after a man charged toward him. Erie County Judge Susan Egan, in handing down the sentence, addressed the shooter, Peyton Gendron, saying, quote, "There can be no mercy for you. The damage you have caused is too great, and the people you have hurt are too valuable to this community. You will never see the light of day as a free man ever again." Erie County District Attorney John Flynn also commented saying, quote, "I would characterize what happened today as the end of the beginning. That while what happened today was a legal closure to the criminal proceeding, it certainly was not any closure on what we need to do as a society and as a community going forward." Linda Harley Harper is now the new executive director of DC's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, Mayor Bowser announced last Thursday. Harper, who is also director of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, will hold both positions simultaneously, according to the mayor. Harper, a DC native, has over 2 decades of experience dealing with juvenile justice, criminal justice, and social services, along with youth development programs and issues. She commented on her new position saying, quote, "I intend to focus on transparency and responsiveness in my new role and ensure that we are serving our residents with the resources they need to keep safe."
Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate that update on the news from the week. And so now it's my pleasure to bring to WIN TV Dr. Lopez Matthews Jr., who is the state archivist and public records administrator for the District of Columbia. Dr. Matthews has written several books and is a commissioner on the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. And he is a friend of the Washington Informer who helped us to even begin the process of putting our archives together. So thank you so much for joining us, Lopez. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great,
I'm
great.
excited to be here to talk to you.
Yeah, well, I after we met, I think I went with ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which you are also a member of, to Birmingham, Alabama, and you shared with us, with the archivist that we met there, that you are the only African American archivist in the nation.
Well, state archivist.
State archivist. Okay,
And
so
to be direct with that, I direct the archive.
Okay.
So that's why I use that term, because the Illinois the Illinois Secretary of State holds the title of state archivist, but he is not the director of their state archives.
So what does that mean, Lopez? For those who are wondering, okay, so what's the big deal? What's that all about?
So I manage the records of the District of Columbia. I am the chief records officer. I set the policy. I enforce the records management rules. And so we hold the history of the future state of DC. That's our role. We ensure that the government's records are preserved and made available to the public. And so that's why that's important. One of the things that people sometimes forget is that while historians write the story, the archivists are the ones who preserve it. And so if we are not there to preserve the documents that we believe are important, they won't be preserved. And so it's important to have people of color represented in this field, because we determine what's preserved and then what you find in your history books.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the preservation of documents, what kind of documents are we talking about for the district?
So we have birth records, death records, marriage records. Those are our most popular documents because people use it for genealogy. But we also have documents from the Department of Housing. We have documents from the police department. We have medical records. We have all kinds of records. So if many people don't understand just how often they interact with government, and there's a record of all of that. And so that's what we hold in the archives. One of the most interesting collections that I just learned about here, because I just started here, is that we have a collection, the Office of Emergency Management Emergency Preparedness, Office of Emergency Preparedness. And they were an office that monitored events that happened in DC.
Mm.
And so they monitored the African liberation marches of the 70s, the yuppie marches of the late 60s, the March on Washington. And so you have all of this documentation of all of these major events that happened in DC history from the government perspective. And so that's, that's something that you look and go, oh, okay, well, what did they have to say? Because we have the newspaper accounts, but
So are these records accessible to the public? Uh-huh.
they are accessible. They are open. Now, we currently are in a small facility. We are building a new, huge archive for DC. So stay tuned for that. But for now, we're in a smaller facility, so we can't really accommodate a lot of people. But they are open.
And where are you located?
So we are at Naylor Court Northwest. So it is an alley street, if you remember what those used to be in DC, off of 9th and O Street. So if you come to 9th and O, make a right onto O, you'll see us right there. Well, turn left to Naylor Court and you'll see us.
So before I move forward, I still want to go back a little bit. How did you gain an interest in archiving or collecting records? Where did that come from?
Well, I will say, it goes to the importance of having people in your life who introduce you to different things. Because I was a student at Coppin State University in Baltimore. And one of my professors, Roger Davidson, took me to the National Archives. And I got to look at the Freedmen's Bureau records. And it blew my mind that you could hold a document that was over 100 years old. I had no idea that you could touch a document that was that old. And I said, wow, I want other people to have this experience. And so that kind of lit my passion to work in archives.
Why is it important to save documents, Lopez? Why should people care about not just governments and libraries and what have you, but individuals? Why is it important to hold on to records? And how do we preserve our own family records?
Well, it's important because that's your story. It's your family story. It's your story. It tells what has happened, how you've gotten to where you are. I mean, obituaries are a wealth of family history. Who was their brother and sister? Who was their mother and father? Okay, that was their mother and father. Let me go back, further and see, well, who else were my ancestors? That's typically how you learn about your family. And then you have the family Bible that documents births. One of my mentors said that when he was born, they just wrote baby boy born between this year and that year. And so he had to use the family Bible to prove who he was. Mm-hmm. And so it's extremely important to preserve your family's history. I mean, I believe history is important because it's what makes us who we are. And so, there are tricks to preserve that history. And I can tell you some of those if you would like.
Well, yeah, I'm very interested because, and especially now in this digital age when things are no longer paper and in boxes, but now they're files on our computers. Yeah, tell me about that, or tell us about that.
In terms of protecting your paper, keep it off the floor. Never put your paper on the floor because floors flood. And if you have a flood, poof, it's gone. So I always recommend keep it in a closet on the top shelf because it's dark, it'll be cool, and there is low risk of flood if you put it up above. I also recommend that people take the time to go buy acid-free scrapbooks. People love scrapbooking, but if you put it in a regular scrapbook, it has glue, it has tape, it has plastic. Those things over time will destroy your documents and destroy your pictures. So buy acid-free archival scrapbooks. They aren't that expensive. You can find them online. Also, for your digital files, make a copy, but also check them. Because people thought CDs were going to be around forever. Oh, I saved it on a CD. But they're really only good between 5 and 10 years, and then they're gone. I have all kinds of CDs that I burned in 2006, 7, 8 that are just empty now because the data just disappeared. And so you have to save it, make copies of it, but also check your files. Every once in a while, make a note to check your files to make sure that they're not being corrupted, that they're not being corroded, because it's much more difficult to preserve digital files than it is to preserve paper.
And so, the other question I was thinking the other day, you get all these files, they're saved on your computer someplace. You happen to die. Nobody has your passwords. Nobody knows how to get into those files. And so what do we do? How do we manage that? And we never know when that day is going to come, so we want to maintain some sense of privacy, maybe, I don't know. But so what would you say about that?
So I would say give the password to someone. If you're going to save it on something with a password, at least have at least one other person that you trust with that password. If you're going to password it, I would recommend saving it on an external hard drive so that you don't even have to worry about password protection. Someone knows, okay, here are the hard drives with our history on it. Right. Here's the original. Here's the backup. Always have a backup. I'll repeat that. Always have a backup. And so I would just recommend saving it on an external hard drive. They've gotten very large, so you can save a lot of stuff on a 2 terabyte hard drive or an 8 terabyte hard drive, and they've gotten much smaller. So they're in as
curious. I'm also curious about what you've discovered, if you can share, as in your job of being the archivist for the district. Anything that you've encountered that really surprised you, and was really surprised that the district still had a copy of.
I was really surprised at the early recorder of deeds books that document people's property, because it goes back to the 1700s and they have slaves listed in them. And you're like, oh, wow, here are enslaved persons listed as property in official government records. And while I knew it happened, when you see it, it gives you a different feeling. You're like, wow, And so it just really brings it home that this actually happened and that it was real and that it was just business.
And wasn't Frederick Douglass once one of our recorder of deeds?
He was. Frederick Douglass was a recorder of deeds for DC.
So I'm sure he ran across those documents too.
He did, and I'm sure that reinforced, yes,
the work that he did. Yeah.
People, not property.
Interesting. So any more advice you would give us for those of us who are trying to maintain those records and documents? And sometimes people, I remember a while ago, I met a gentleman who happened to have been white, who told me that he reads the obituaries. This is what he was doing back then. And he would go, if a person died, it kind of got a sense of where that person lived. And he would go through the alleys. And these were Black folks, through the alleys of these homes, and go through their trash cans and pull out letters, all kinds of documents, postcards, all kinds of things that he sold as memorabilia, because so many people throw things away.
That's what Dorothy Porter used to do. They called her a bag lady. Dorothy Porter was the longtime curator of the Moreland Springer Research Center at Howard. That's how she built that collection. She would go to people's houses after they died and say, give this stuff to me. It's important. Don't throw it away. And that's how she built the collections at Moreland Springer, because she understood the importance of these individuals and the importance of their records to history. And so she went there and saved it from being thrown away. Sometimes she would even go in the trash when they threw it in the trash and take it out. But she didn't sell it. She just saved it and preserved it and made it available for research. But yeah, it's very important.
So, and I don't know if my mother's watching, because I'm getting personal now, because she's like, she's getting all these certificates and plaques and things over the years. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with those things? I mean, so someone suggested to take pictures of them and save them that way. But, when my dad passed, for example, he had hundreds of plaques and trophies and what have you. I mean, what do you do with those things?
Now you're talking to an archivist.
Okay.
I would
That's
box
why I'm
them.
asking you.
I would box them up and put them away because you could do a display of their history one day. You could one day donate them to a museum, that could do a display of his history. You just never know. Your grandchildren might say, I want my great grandfather's trophy. Let me put this on my mantle. And so, you save it for the future generations because you just this is your history. And so I say pack it up nicely, safely in archival boxes and store it off the floor for future generations to save.
So you just introduced a "I told you so" conversation. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure she does too. So, yeah. So, I mean, as we, kind of are beginning, we're in the middle of Black History Month now, and going into Women's History Month. And so, I mean, in closing, is there anything you would want to share with us that we really, really do besides, what you've said, and you might need to repeat that again, but something, you can leave with us that really helps us to understand not only why the history of the city is important, but what happens within our own families is important.
I would just say understand that it's your story. How did you get to where you are today? That's what these documents tell. That's what your history says, and that's why it needs to be preserved. We don't just document the accomplishments, we document the failures. And you need to learn from your successes, but also learn from your mistakes. And so that's why history is important. That's why you document history. And that's why it needs to be made available. Now, your personal history, you save that to tell the story of your family. And you make it available for future generations so that they understand where they came from. Because it gave me strength to learn about my family, to learn that, wow, we came from a town called Matthewsville. It's like, wow, that's amazing, to learn that history. It really just reinforces who you are as a person. And so that's why I think it's very important for people to preserve their history.
Dr. Lopez Matthews Jr., thank you so very much for being with us today and sharing all this great information and some instructions that we can follow on how we can keep our own Black history alive. So I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
All righty. Have a great, great day.
You too.
All righty. So I think I got something out of that, and I hope you did too. We have, as far as our newspaper is concerned, we're in the process. And Lopez, I didn't mention that, but did help us when he was at the Howard University Moreland Spingarn Research Center to begin to digitize all of our old newspapers. And so we have those, and now we're just trying to figure out where to go next. And did you all hear the great news about the Afro that got a I'll just round it off, $3 million grant, congressional funding to purchase a historic building in Baltimore for its Afro charities and to complete its archives. I mean, they have like, what was it? I get the zeros mixed in. I don't know if it was 30 or 3 million photographs, audio tapes, all kinds of things that they have that really help to tell the African-American story, the experience of our community. I mean, Black newspapers have been doing this all the time, but sometimes we're not the best at even preserving our own history, which means that we're not preserving yours. So I am so excited for our sister paper up there in Baltimore. And we're going to hear more about that, I think, as time goes on. But now we're going to move on to talk to my friend, Len Dyson, founder of the Multimedia Training Institute, where he trains young people in media arts and digital production. Len, welcome to WIN TV.
Thank you, Denise. That story was so amazing about this archive. Before we get into what we're going to talk about, I just want to mention one thing real quick. Fletcher of the Fletcher Johnson School. I live in the Fletcher house right now. His mother, Sumner Fletcher, married my mother's sister. So I live in his house, and his mother was the Fletcher of the Fletcher Johnson School.
Wow.
And I got all this stuff at my house, and like, what do you do with it? I'm glad to hear that. I'm gonna box it up and preserve it and all of that. So that's amazing. I just wanted to make that point. I just found that fascinating, that story.
Well, I think somebody's got Facebook on or something, so I need you to cut that off because we're getting feedback. But that is Fletcher Johnson School. That's But Glenn, you're going to have so much of a story to tell yourself. I hope you're keeping your archives together.
Yeah, we're trying to videotape the whole thing and have a video archive of everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But even some of those, those contracts, I still have the check that my father wrote me when my first check for a week's worth of work, $25. I still have that check.
Wonderful.
So anyway, we've got Odell Ruffin with us too, who's a playwright. And
Yes.
How are you, Odell?
I'm doing wonderful.
Welcome back home. I say to WIN TV, former journalist with us, but went on and doing great things in LA and then back here in DC. So glad to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's just I just wanted to say for all the viewers that when I was a writer, like Denise gave me my first professional shot at actually print journalism. So I'm so blessed to be here right now. And part of that's because of you. So I'm happy.
Yeah, well, I'm happy. So we're all happy because you've got a great play that we're going to, that's available. It's been showing, but it's coming back again. So, Lynn, I think I'll start with you, really. Well, no, let me start with Odell, because Odell, you wrote this play and tell us about it. It's about Shirley Chisholm.
Yes.
And for those who don't know who she is, she was one of the founders of the Congressional Black Caucus. I believe one of the first Black individuals to run for president of the United States.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a fantastic story to tell. And so why did you pick her, Miss Chisholm, to do a play about?
It starts all the way back to when I went to school, and I thought about all the heroes that we heard about, but then the ones that we didn't. So at this point, I was like, wow, I heard of Shirley Chisholm, but I didn't hear too much depth about her. So you fast forward years later when I'm in LA, I'm thinking about that, and I see this documentary on Bossed, and I was like, wow, this is a very fierce woman. Like, first I was a little upset, like, how come I hadn't heard about this? And then so I wanted to take action by putting pen to paper and producing this one woman show. And so we developed a story. We did the play out in LA. It got great reviews. And then I thought, coming back home into such a politically charged area, this is like the perfect fit for her story. And so over the years, this has certainly really, really evolved, thanks to the help of our producer, Lynn Dyson. I mean, he's added so many flavors to this in terms of multimedia that it is now, one of the top shows I can say in DC. So I was really inspired by what she brought in that time in 1972. And it was just amazing to be able to put her story out.
Wow. Yeah. Lynn, how did you get hooked?
I just went to see the show here.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't have the multimedia, any of that with it. But, I'm a history buff and theater buff, and you tie all that together. I said, wow, this is the show for this time, for this town. The rise of the Black woman as a political operative, power broker in this country. I mean, the whole Democratic Party wouldn't even be existing at this point if it wasn't for the Black women and voting people in. So the story just had to be told. And people keep saying, well, why do you keep bringing this show back again? I said, it's not just a show. It's a cause. It's a calling for our people. And even more so now with what's happening in the country. So we're excited about bringing it back. And I'm calling February 24th to 25th, the Chisholm Effect Weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, and I say that because on the 24th, we have the DC Recreation Department Senior Division, and we have the Department of Aging. It's a different name now, DACL. And we're bringing, and DC Rec, we're bringing in 625 youth and seniors on the 24th of February to the Ark. They're being bussed in, and the senior division is providing lunch and for them and meals for them to see this historic play. And then the next day, the 25th, as you know, Asala, the organization of Carter G. Woodson, that's Black History Month, I mean, all over the nation, they're buying the entire house out at 2 p.m. And then we're going to have this panel discussion afterwards. And Miss Congressman Yvette Clarke, who sits in the seat of Shirley Chisholm now, will be on a panel with other scholars on Shirley Chisholm. And then that evening, we're doing a show again, and it's the 40th anniversary of Multimedia Training Institute. And we're honoring Mr. Black History himself, Chuck Hicks. It's his birthday. So it's called the Chisholm Effect Weekend. And we're just excited. And people got to come out, bring your children, bring your grandmother, your grandpapa, your uncle, your aunts, your nieces to see this amazing show and to hear this wonderful panel and just have that experience. And hopefully you'll be motivated and charged up to go out and have a little Shirley Chisholm in yourself.
Yo, I mean, I can't wait. I told you I bought my tickets already, Odell. So,
wow.
And you've been at the Arc a couple of times, but this will be, so it makes sense for you all to come back because there's still people like me that have not seen this play. So I am excited, looking forward to it, and especially the discussion that's going to take place afterwards. When you did this play, what did you expect people to walk away with, Odell? What did you want people to kind of get from it?
I wanted them to get how tough and how many odds that she had to go through during that campaign year. So the play is kind of slated towards just that specific trail. So there's one, Education Through Entertainment, which is my production company. So first of all, I want to get the youth really, really involved in politics and understanding how politics works. And so what the play does is it infuses that message throughout. But either way, we want to take away what struggle that she went through just in that year and how she paved the way for so many other politicians now to today. Like it's no secret, especially in the town, like politically, like she's a really big folk hero that goes around, and so many people are enthusiastic about what she meant. And so that's what I want them to take away from it.
Lynn, 40 years. 40 years of the Multimedia Training Institute.
I know.
When you reflect back and realize the beginning of that journey and, how you're supporting or, sort of advancing what playwrights like Odell will be doing next weekend. How do you feel about your journey?
I feel good because I'm looking at young people that come up on the streets and Mr. Dice, and I was in your class 15 years ago or 10 years ago, and I have students that have formed their own production companies and blown up and multi-$1,000 of business. I mean, they're much larger than I am, so, and then I've seen people go on into network television and broadcast radio, and, people don't know, and bless his soul, Brother R was one of my students,
Wow.
And he went on into radio production with PFW and so forth. So it's just been a rewarding experience to document history, to have other playwrights like Odell Ruffin, and we had the Delaney sisters. We did that show, and it's just been so rewarding, to do that. And just recently, we got a major grant from the city to start training adults now in what we do. And a job training program, and adults will get paid $16 an hour to learn video production. Can you believe that?
Wow, that's wonderful.
IT and then stuff like that. So I'm just excited. So we're gonna take the youth and the adults to work on Odell Ruffin's Campaign 72. Odell, you need to tell us what's this new play. Odell said he's gonna reveal on the 25th.
Yes. On the 25th, yeah. He's trying to get that out of me, but I'm not.
I want to know about it now. Who is this new play? Rumors has it that it's going to be Marion Barry. I'm not sure.
Oh.
So anyway, Odell's got a new play, Denise.
Okay, he's not telling us,
He's
but
not telling us.
But I do want to say though, when it comes to plays, Lynn, and I think when we first met, going back, I mean, it was Robert Hooks and the gosh, why am I forgetting the name of the theater that used to be
DC
on
Black
Georgia?
Repertory Company.
DC Black Repertory Company. I mean, theater in DC is blowing up right now. I do feel good about that. But I'm wondering how you're feeling, about sort of the evolution of theater in DC, and Odell, you can add on to that, the space that you've been able to make for yourself in this place. I don't think we have any Black theater
Well,
houses.
that's always a major peeve for me. We're not dealing with the institutional building of having a space. I think Mosaic is doing some wonderful things, but it's not, it wasn't born out of the Black community and built by the Black community, and we've had Black theater companies, and I always say, as the years go by, you see the Kennedy Center, the Arena Stage doing more Black shows, but again, it's not a Black business. Okay, and I think it's a Black business, a Black corporation that's producing our story still does not exist on a large level. So that's my vision to develop the Robert Hooks International Media Cultural Center here in DC.
Oh, that's powerful.
I would love to do that, and then have the Motojico Theater. You remember Motojico, the
Yes,
director?
yes.
Motojico Theater inside that facility. We just recently found a little space in the Church of Atonement here on East Capitol Street, not too far from me. And we're going to have a little 50-seat theater in there now. We're going to have a TV studio. So that will lay the foundation. So when we go to the powers to be to say, hey, we need to own our own. I think Dance Institute of DC, which I love, they have their own building, but they're doing dance. And that's important. We need to have more of those.
Right.
So it's a void that we need to have. And there's quite an appetite for Black culture and theater in the city. You see it whenever, like for instance, Step Africa, just Arena Stage, they're selling out.
Yes, no question.
Imagine that being in a Black-owned facility.
And we're not the ones that are buying all those tickets either.
I know. So it's Black business. They say, oh, well, why do you need a Black director or a Black producer or any of that? We can produce it for you.
Yes.
We can put you in our nice white facility and produce it for you. They're saying Black businesses shouldn't exist. Shouldn't be.
I got you.
Protecting our own culture.
Odell, and what about you? I mean,
how
have you found your space kind of in this growing theater, space?
Yeah, it's the quality of work is top notch. I always tell people outside of DC that, with New York, DC is probably second in theater, or if it's probably jumped down to third, between second and third in terms of theater, in terms of the culture of theater, Black theater. But we need a home. That's the thing. We definitely need a home, like Lynn was saying. Producing that is great because the economic effect trickles down. So it's not just about the show, but it's also about the businesses that are attached to the show. It's about the people that are working. So keeping that within the community is really, really important. That's why I always love the fact to kind of go back to the days when you did have the ensemble. Like, wow, that's amazing. That's crazy to have your own space that you can always go to and you just know, and then you can constantly produce work. Because I feel like as an artist, when you have that space, you feel more comfortable in producing rapid work. And then that trickles down to the community economically. And just to kind of add in the fact that we're not just reaching it's in terms of the play, we're reaching a vast majority of audiences. And that's what's the blessing of this play has been. When I look out, I see the audience, I see a diverse group of people that come to the show. And that is the mark of, I guess I'm tooting my own horn, of a good show, but it's based on the village, everybody that works with it. The wonderful actress, Dominique Brown, who embodies Shirley Chisholm, the people behind the scenes, stage manager, my terrific director, Charlotte. She's awesome. So she's directing this piece. So there's a lot to be excited about for the show.
Well, I just, as I told you, I've got my ticket, so I'm looking forward to coming. Let's give the dates and the times again. I know, Lynn, you talked about the 24th, but that sounds like a special event, but the 25th as well.
I would like to say, and I'm happy to say, we're doing 4 productions, and 3 of them are already pretty much filled up. So the last show would be the 8 p.m. show on February 25th. That's Saturday evening. And then actually, that's going to be a reception at 6 o'clock. And everybody's invited to the reception to celebrate Mr. Black History birthday himself, Chuck Hicks. And that
Nice.
will be at 6 o'clock. And then the show is at 8 o'clock. So that's the show that we really want to invite everybody to, because that's the one we still have tickets available for. So that's February 25th. Then go to the website, www.mmtidc.org. I think they have .com up there, but it's .org. And they can get their tickets there. They can give us a call at 202-270-2850. But let me just say that
Can you repeat that number again, Lynn?
202-270-2850. And the website is mmtidc.org.
Wonderful. Great. Okay. All right. We were going to post that, but I'm not seeing it. So I guess we'll get it up. Okay. Great. There it is. Okay. Wonderful. So looking forward to seeing you all next week, Odell.
Yes.
Loving the fact that you're doing this. I keep saying I'm going to retire from the newspaper business in a couple of years.
You've been saying that for a while now.
I know. And when I do, I'm coming to you and to Lynn. Lynn, I want to know how to do, video production. Odell, I want to launch my acting career. I don't think I'll be too old to do that. Hopefully not. And, I can take a video of myself on the big screen.
Hold on, please.
That's what I'll do. So, but I'm glad that you're doing this. I loved all the work that you're trying to do, Lynn, with this Robert Hooks Center. We want to hear more about that as that evolves. But for now, I just want to thank both of you all for being with us today.
Thank you.
I just want to say also, we are taking the show on national tour.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
That's in the plans right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I can say I knew you when. Thank you.
Your father's not going to let you retire, Denise.
All right. We'll see.
Not at all.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Thanks, Odell. We are kind of going down to the end, and it's really good. We got our next guest because, gosh, this is February, March. We're kind of moving into the marriage season now. We just had Valentine's Day. I'm not surprised if there were a lot of proposals was that Tuesday? On the 14th. And so now that we are back together again, we're going to probably have some beautiful weddings. And I'm so happy to have Ashley and Charles Young. Well, I have Ashley with us. I think Charles is out doing something, right, Ashley?
Yes, getting all of those orders out with his team from the warehouse. So yes, he is off site today, but I'm so happy to be here with you, Denise.
Thank you, Ashley. So tell me, you're with you all have Bridal Babes. What is that? And why was it created?
Yeah, so we are the first inclusive line for bridesmaid dresses. So that means that we design with women of all shades, shapes, and sizes in mind. And we really are the first. So our size range goes from sizes 2 through 30. So now when women are looking for bridesmaid dresses, they don't have to worry, is my size going to be available? And most importantly, is something that's actually trend-setting and stylish that I'll want to wear again available.
Wow, that's amazing, because you want your besties in the wedding with you, and you want to make everybody feel comfortable and invited and all of that. So I think that's a wonderful thing that you all are doing. So I understand you all were featured on Shark Tank. Tell us about that experience.
Well, I am a huge Shark Tank fan, and by default, Charles is a huge Shark Tank fan because we do Friday nights watching Shark Tank on the couch together when the two toddlers, well, actually, they're not toddlers anymore. They're 3 and 4, are asleep, but they're forever toddlers in my mind. So it was just an amazing experience. We went through the full due diligence process. So a lot of people don't know like all of the paperwork and things you have to do before getting on the show. It was like 4 months of paperwork in the middle of wedding season, but it all paid off once we were on the show and meeting the sharks. It was just like the pitch of a lifetime.
What did you take away from that experience that helped you and you and Charles and what you were doing with your business?
I think the biggest thing that we learned is the importance of having everything together if an opportunity comes up. So a lot of businesses we found out like don't make it to actually air because they don't have all of their financials together, their business documents, all of that. So we luckily were very buttoned up, but we have an amazing accounting team and finance team really to make sure that we're ready to go whenever there are great opportunities like that. So that's probably the biggest learning and piece of advice that I do share with other businesses.
And you all are, I mean, to small businesses, it's big potatoes, right? You all have generated $2 million in lifetime revenue since you launched the company. Um, and when did you all launch?
We launched officially in 2019, so right before the pandemic.
So what do you think attributes to your success that you've experienced so far?
Yeah, I think it's really the yin and the yang. So, of course, Charles isn't here with me today, but having co-founders that really balance each other. I do a lot of the marketing, the sales, the fun, like creative things, and he does the logistics, the finances, the operations, the things like the foundational pieces. So, I think having that balance is so wonderful, and being able to work together as a husband and wife couple. Because it's like you could talk about business forever. Sometimes you have to remind each other to like turn it off, when
Yeah.
but it is great to have just another, dedicated partnership.
And how, if you don't mind me asking, how long have the two of you been married?
So we've been married for almost 7 years. It'll be 7 years in May.
Okay.
But we've actually known each other for 18 years. We met in high school. So we're DC native. So I went to Georgetown Visitation and he went to Gonzaga. So we met in high school.
Nice, nice. Okay. So, it is bridal season. It's coming up, I think. Maybe I should ask you. Is it bridal season yet?
Yes,
Okay.
it's right around the corner. It's basically March through November now. So when you
Wonderful.
talked about the proposals, it's like as soon as the girls finish getting engaged, Christmas or actually Thanksgiving through Valentine's Day, then it's go, go, go for bridal season.
Yeah, you just reminded me. March 9th, I have an anniversary coming up. So, wow. And
Congratulations.
at this point, you say, okay, 38 years we're still here. Yay, yay, yay.
Amazing. That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm not looking for, wedding gowns or anything, but I do have young friends who are trying to get that, at least the moms are trying to help them not cause a bunch of confusion,
Right.
but to help them to get their wedding plans together. Do you have any like tips on planning a wedding?
Yes. I would say start early. So a lot of times, our girls, this even goes down to the bridesmaid dresses, but they're like, oh, I'm 3 months away from the wedding. Let me get everything together because they're thinking it's just like an easy event to put together. But literally, like, get engaged, enjoy it for a couple of weeks, but at least start planning those big things like the photographer, the venue, the videographer, and then, of course, your wedding dress and your bridesmaid dresses, because those are like the make or break items. Everything else you can kind of like let fall into place, but I would say those are like at the 6 to 9 months. You definitely do not want to wait until 3 months to do anything planning wise.
So I know you're in business and to do these, to sell dresses and what have you, but budgeting. I mean, I think that's a big issue because some people will go really way out, and some people will be, just take me to the justice of the peace. I just need a nice dress, and my girlfriend can wear, whatever, and I'm good. But so, how do you advise people on budgeting for a wedding?
Yeah, this is actually a great point because during the pandemic, we expanded outside of just bridesmaid dresses for that reason. So
Hmm.
now we have another affordable line. So most of our gowns are priced under $300, and we have an
Wow.
affordable collection that's actually under $150. It's like amazing. People cannot believe it. But what we did was we rolled out some affordable white dresses, which people wore for either bridal showers, justice of the peace, reception, whatever it might be. And those are also under $150. So there are ways that you can save because, weddings do end up adding up and budgeting. Again, if Charles was here, he'd be like, what are you talking about? You went crazy with the wedding budget. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. But, just finding ways to cut costs. So I didn't actually pay for them. Charles and I paid for it. Probably Charles paid for it. The bridesmaid dresses for our bridesmaids, and they were only like $90, And
Wow.
being able to do things like that and find savings versus spending like $400 on a bridesmaid dress, especially because we had a destination wedding. So they were paying for the flight and all of that. So we had to help them find some savings.
Yeah, and also colors. You mentioned a lot of colors, and then you said, and we have white. I know that old traditional weddings. I mean, people kind of limited their spectrum of colors that they could use in weddings. What's the trend today?
Yeah, well, I know before we went on air, I had the sienna color. I should have brought it over. I'm preparing for in-person consultations tomorrow. But sienna is such a huge color. So that's like the brown, copper tone. It almost looks like a nude on our skin tones.
That was a beautiful dress.
Yeah, actually pull it over. I'll pull it over. We have a second. But really, we call it the Shades of Melanin collection, and it's so special because when you think of nudes, in like the mainstream world, it's like a tan color, and it's not so flattering on us. But we have stretch satin shades of melanin, so chocolate, mocha, sienna that really just pop on our skin tones, not just because of the color, but also because it has a little bit of shine to it. And we like to be out there. We don't want to be muted. Our style is very, fashion forward.
Right, exactly. No, that's really cool. And for the wedding dresses themselves, the same thing. Is white still a traditional color for weddings?
Yeah, so we are seeing people kind of playing around with different colors. So we've seen blush wedding gowns, red wedding gowns. Our girls tend to do less on changing the colors and more on adding embellishments. So
Mm.
the bling is really big. So we actually have a stretched bridal sequin. So it's like a white sequin, but with stretch. So it really drapes your curves. The feathers, as you can see today, I'm wearing them, but the feathers are really big. So our girls love, we have a dress that has feathers, off the shoulder, so vibrant and beautiful. So our girls are really playing with different like materials and embellishments on the dresses.
So Ashley, I know that somebody's going to come in because they need that advice that you're going to give them right away. I think in a couple of minutes. So I'm not going to hold you much longer. But how can people find you? Oh, there it is. We've got it up on our screen.
Yeah, so
And
you can
go
get
ahead.
mine at www.bridalbabes.com or .co. .com actually works as well. And then we are very, very vibrant and thriving on Instagram and TikTok. It's at Bridal Babes. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter.
And so I mean, and just also really quickly, we have 2 minutes. How do you work with people? I mean, do they come in? They tell you kind of what they want, or I mean, how do you work with people and advise brides and their bridesmaids
So we
and
actually have
matrons?
3 different ways you can work with us. So you can either
Okay.
go directly on the website. If you love a dress and you just want to send the link to your girls in the group chat, you can go on the website and purchase directly. We also have a few different ways that you can interact with us virtually. So you can either email us and get more styling advice. We have a free Zoom call that we do monthly, so you can come on and talk to us live. We also have personalized virtual consultations with you and your bridal party. And we just recently released a few slots for in-person consultations. So that's the meeting that you mentioned I was running to. So if you are in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, or if you just want to travel to DC, you can actually come visit us in our studio. You and a couple of bridesmaids, not your full bridal party of 20, because most of
Right,
our girls have 20.
right, I hear you.
All fit in here, but you can bring a few of the girls and we can have a little session where we can show you the dresses, show you different swatches, and then we also bring out the bubbly for that one.
Oh, nice. Well, I might have to do it all over again. My husband keeps saying, for our anniversary, do we want to, what's the word when you renew your vows? And so maybe just for the sake of having that experience again, I might be reaching out.
Come on, and we have a lot of vow renewal anniversary clients. That's when they really have a lot of fun with color and styles.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. Tell Charles we didn't get a chance to meet him, but we know he's out there working hard
Sure.
and supporting this wonderful idea. I love it. So take care. Have a great day, and keep bringing those couples together.
Thank you for having us, Denise, and enjoy the rest of your day too.
Thank you. You too. Well, that's interesting. That was really cool. I like that. I appreciate that conversation. I really think I appreciated the whole show. You know, I sometimes look at the show like you all do, as just a viewer. I'm asking questions, but I'm listening and I'm learning and sort of getting a sense of what's going on in our community and who's doing everything. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I want to thank everybody who watched. Hopefully, you can share the show later on. If you saw something that was really inspiring or informative, share it with your friends and family on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. We want to make sure that it gets out there. So before signing off, we want you to watch this week's Black History video by Curtis Knowles. Have a wonderful, safe weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Don't go away. Okay,
William Tucker was the first person of African ancestry to be born into the 13 British colonies. His birth symbolized the beginnings of a distinct African American identity along the eastern coast of what would eventually become the United States. William Tucker was born in 1624 near Jamestown, Virginia, the son of Anthony and Isabel, two African indentured servants. Historians do not know much of William Tucker's life due to the fragmented pieces of primary source material available for contemporary study. According to the 1624 and 25 Virginia census, 22 Africans lived in Virginia at the time of Tucker's birth. And the first 20 of these Africans arrived in 1619, and all of them worked under indentured servitude contracts. It was Tucker's descendants who would later become the nucleus of the free black population which existed in Virginia prior to the Civil War. Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated, the nation's first Greek letter college sorority, has started its own financial institution known as the Four Members Only Federal Credit Union. The AKAs, founded on the campus of Howard University in 1908, have more than 300,000 female initiates in 12 countries and boast prominent alumni such as Vice President Kamala Harris. Four Members Only Federal Credit Union debuted in Chicago earlier this month. The credit union was launched after receiving a federal charter and backing from the Share Insurance Fund from the National Credit Union Administration. In its first years of operation, Four Members Only will offer savings accounts and lending services such as online banking, share and share draft accounts, personal loans, and debit cards. The credit union will serve AKA members, their families, and the group's employees.